Hello, Rocky Mountain College and College Watching and Viewing. It's your host, Darius Henderson, and I am here with a very, very special guest, Nick Joe. So, today's topic will be grief. So, with that being said, let's get straight to it. Let's turn up the volume and silence the shame. Grief is deep sorrow, normally resulting with a death of a loved one or just any death in general. I feel like grief is just more than just someone passing away. Grief can kind of deal with things such as this whole COVID pandemic, just loving something and then having to have loss of it, That's something that grief is. Oh man, so grief. So Nick, when you hear the word grief, like what comes to mind?
Loss, definitely. And not just loss of a person, but any kind of loss of routine, and also kind of a helplessness. It's loss that you can't control. You can't get it back.
And when you deal with those kind of loss, I know I hear this a lot, and I feel like it's coming from a good heart or a good place. The intentions are right. So like people say, stay strong. Mm-hmm. And I feel like sometimes when you hear that, it's kind of congruent with the fact that don't feel how you feel. Stay strong. Like, you can just push through it, which I feel like is not the case. Like, don't stay strong. You need to feel how you're feeling, so then that way you can get over it in a much better way.
Exactly. And I think part of the way that phrase can still be used, instead of just saying, like, don't use that phrase, is there is strength in letting yourself feel what you need to feel. And so instead of correlating be strong with forget about it, don't think about it, just get over it, correlate be strong with allow yourself to feel those emotions and process that loss.
Wow, I never thought like that. I feel like that gives it so much more power when you kind of associate. It's the same meaning, but I'm saying it's changing the meaning behind it.
Yeah.
You can be strong with be strong this way, and I feel like that's something that you don't hear. You don't hear that perspective, not enough.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think a lot of the problems we kind of face in our society with the shame and the taboo on mental wellness is that a lot of the phrasing has come to mean different things. And if we can change those meanings, such as be strong, there's strength and vulnerability. And you can encourage someone to be strong through grief if you're also encouraging that vulnerability and that process, because otherwise it's not healthy.
Because I feel like just being vulnerable and kind of feeling those feelings are a part of the grieving process. Exactly.
Jeez. And you're not going to be able to process that loss unless you feel the loss and feel the sadness and that grief. Yeah.
Wow. So I know what's on you hear grief, and I can only have my mic close to me. Sheesh, I'm sorry about that, guys. But so when you hear grief, can you explain or talk about how it can be also associated with things, not just a loss of someone close to you, or like not a death, just things in general?
Yeah. So like the grief we think of a lot is like the death of a family member, the death of a beloved pet. Like we think about that a lot, but also, especially during COVID, the loss of routine, the loss of being able to spend time with your friends, the loss of your sports, especially for like seniors and stuff, being so impacted their senior year.
Yeah, senior, definitely.
And it's not just COVID with loss of routines and stuff. It can also be like losing an important game or, stuff like that generally we think of as like, oh, this is trivial, get over it. And it's like, but you're feeling those emotions.
Right. Wow. I never thought of it like that. I mean, because when you think of grief, I think of just I lost, my pet or I lost a loved one. But
exactly.
Routine is, I feel like that's one that we all deal with. I feel like we all deal with some type of grief. I mean, not comparing the two, but I'm saying grief is something as a human that you're going to experience. Yeah. So I guess my next question is, and to those watching, like, how do you deal with grief? Like, what are some of the ways that you manage that?
Yeah, well, to give an example, this semester I lost my dog, my horse, and one of my uncles.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, so it's been a rough semester. And one of the ways that I've dealt with that, on top of all of the everyday grief of COVID, is being able to process when I have time to process and set it aside when I don't. Because if you take your 3 days after the event has happened where you don't really go to classes, you don't make yourself be functional, and then after that you have to get back to your classes and your routine so that you're not also grieving that. And so being able to like shelve for the 2 hours you're in class and then bring it back to processing when you get home at night or something like that. Just being able to
Wow, so you said shelf. So you said you might elaborate, because I feel like that is definitely a great example of just being able to lock in, stay in the present moment of being in class, taking care of routines, but not forgetting about how you really feel.
Exactly, yeah. And so that's why I call it shelving, because you're not locking it behind a door. You're not just trying to shove it away. It's still there, it's just put away for later. And I actually struggle with doing that too much.
Right.
One of my problems is that I shut the door.
Right.
But being able to set it aside is what allows me to still like be present in class and be in the present moment. And also like it allows you to laugh at your friend's joke or something like that, because that endorphins will actually help you process.
No, definitely. Endorphins can kind of be shown through so many different ways. I've been doing a lot of reading. I mean, endorphins can kind of be demonstrated through exercising, even writing songs or doing music and laughing, like you said. So I feel like just being aware of how to get those endorphins going is definitely important to you feeling better.
Listening to songs. I listen to a lot of music.
Wow, Nick, well, I mean, I appreciate you coming on. I feel like grief
thanks
is
for having me.
No, for sure, definitely. And grief is just such a topic that, it's kind of takes a lot to talk about. So I appreciate you coming on. And at the closing of the show, we give a shout out to someone we miss, we love, or, we want to show love to. We just look in the camera and we just shout them out. But before you do that, you got to put on the RMC chains.
All right.
And then just give them a quick shout out.
All right. Well, for my shout out, I'm going to give a thank you to my professor Ashley, who's really helped me this semester with everything I've been going through, and also Kim, our chaplain, because I go cry in her office.
No, Kim's great. Wow, well, my shout out goes to Nick, again, just coming on and just being vulnerable and just, sharing some insight on grieving. I feel like people watching definitely will benefit from this, so appreciate you again. And that is our show for today, and look forward to seeing you guys next week. Peace.